Okay, so here we are now finishing up the last 4 questions. So this is going to be all about customizations, okay, and saving time and shortcuts. So it's going to be 12% of the exam. So you should be able to be expected to know how and why to memorize transactions, okay? Especially we learned this in chapter 13, right? It was the last thing that we got to take a look at. Why? Let's talk about the why first, and then we'll talk about the how later. Okay? So, yeah, let's do why. Why is it so important to memorize reports?
To make it easier.
Exactly.
So especially the way you like the way a report looks, or uh, so you don't have to have a duplication of effort if you have to do the same report for multiple companies or multiple people in your business.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to it's just to have the one.
Exactly. So, what does it mean to automate transactions entries?
See, to automate them, it'd be like the same. It's almost the same thing. Um, you
It's where, okay, so in this case,
yeah,
it's where the form is already filled for you, right? As
right,
in, like, if
right,
you remember when we did the rent expense, right? Because when
right,
I saved it the first time, I didn't save how much money. But then the second time I saved it, I saved how much money it was and the specific location that the rent was for. So by automating it, when you every time you would click on it, it would fill out the whole entire form for you, and all you have to do is just change the date if it's not automatically changed for you, and you just go ahead and submit the bill. So in this case, it makes it easier to produce forms, okay, i.e., sales, sales bills, okay, um, and the second part you said, if you produced something, right? You said if you created a custom report instead of having to redo everything. Okay,
right.
that's good. All right. Okay. So how do we do that? Do you remember how we memorize our transactions?
Well, I know you can memorize invoices and sales receipts.
Yes.
There's
Yes.
a couple things that you can't. I believe bill payments. I think it is
Yes.
paychecks. Paychecks is
Yes.
one. But to memorize a transaction, you could like go to the bill, create a bill,
Uh huh.
and then you would select memorize bill from the edit menu.
Perfect. Or if you go at the top of the bill, you have the memorize button right there.
Right, right.
Okay. So good. So how is going to be, you need to create the form first, right? By filling out, okay, so I'm going to write IE filling out the form. Then um, click, click memorize at the top of window or edit menu. Memorize transactions. Okay. Now, once we've actually memorized our transactions, how do we create it again? How do we where do we find our memorized transactions so that we can enter in our bills automatically?
Um, well, it should be every time you launch it, it should be in the it checks the memorized transaction list.
Where's
Uh,
that? Where is that memorized transaction list?
I think that's it. It should be in your list menu.
It's under your list. Good. List, menu, and then you're going to go down to memorized transactions. Good. Okay. Next question says that how to set up multiple users and what level of access they can be granted on or denied. Okay, so do you remember this one? This was um, overlapping. I taught it the very following day after, but I taught you how to do this. How do you do this? How do you create a user?
Usually, you don't. I think you could go into your file.
Not file.
Hmm.
That's to be able to allow multiple users to have access, but how do you create one? How do you create a user in order for them to have access to the file?
You have to go to accountant to set it up, I believe. Is that
I,
it's in the administration
accountant.
of, is what I'm thinking.
Okay. So what's next to accountant on the menu bar? Company. All right. Company menu bar.
Set up users and passwords.
Okay, good. Set up users and passwords. All right, and if you need a refresher, it's gonna be when we took a look at chapter 7. At the end of chapter 7, since we ended early, I believe I did go over that small section, right? We went over to set up an HR person, right? And every time you click, you set up that person, right? You just set up their username and their password, right? In my case, I just put HR, and their password was payroll, right? And then every question that I answer goes through a series of what they have access to. So the first question or first couple questions was, do they have access to the sales? You say no. Do they have access to inventory? You say no. Do they have access to enter bills? You say no. Then we got down to the part where, do they have access to payroll? You say yes. And then you get, once you press yes, it's going to drop down another section saying what level of access do they have. You want to give them full access or only some access, right? And then you can go from there, right? So pretty much it's a series of questions that you answer, and it will pretty much shrink up what the person can actually see. So when you are logged in as that other user, you're only able to see whatever you have access to. So if I'm only for if I am the HR, right? And I go ahead and access QuickBooks, I'm only going to see the employees and the pay employees, the whole payroll section. But anything that has to do with sales or inventory, entering bills, it's not going to appear at all. Okay, so that's the difference. Okay. So, okay, so we've got to take a look at that. And again, like you've mentioned before, only admin can create other users. Okay, good. All right. How and why to create custom fields. So do you remember this? This is where we have to we gather information that's in addition to the customer, vendor, or employee, right? So for things like, let's say I learn about their hobbies, their pet name, or sorry, their animal's pet name, right? Or we learned about that they have a spouse. What's the name of the spouse, right? Or even the business. When was the business established? Okay. Well, okay. So first, let's go ahead and talk about um, the why, and then we'll talk about the how. Okay. So why is it so important to have custom reports? Custom fields.
Well, I think you accidentally gave it to me.
Okay.
It's just so you can do custom reports for your customers and their vendors. In so you can do like totals of purchases or sales or um, what parts they might sell the most of, or
Okay.
that kind of thing. It tracks it that way.
Okay. So that's for custom reports. I'm sorry. I think I might have put custom reports. I meant custom fields. So what's so important about learning about your customer spouse's name? Why is that so important?
So that you can establish relationship with your customer
Exactly.
or vendor or employee.
Establish your relationship. Good. Yes. Okay. Let's talk about the how, and then let's talk about the what. All right. So there's also what. So let's talk about the how. How do you create custom fields? Do you remember?
Let me see. I think you can go. I think if you go to
Okay, we'll go on customer.
looking for like an additional.
Ooh, okay, good. Additional what? Where can you find that? So if I create a new customer, right?
Yeah.
Come on. I click on new customer. Okay. If I create a new customer, what tab am I going to find that custom field under?
New customer job.
Mm-mm.
That's what I'm thinking. Yes.
Custom fields, right?
Yeah.
You can kind of say, is knowing a hobby something that you're going to know about a customer right away?
No, no, that's something you garner over time usually.
Okay, so where would you place that information?
So you have the customer names and you place it. I want to say it's an other.
Is there a tab that says other?
Well, just over in when you're filling out everything else.
Okay,
Additional info.
additional info, right? Because
Yeah.
it's information that otherwise is extra, right? So if
Right.
I go ahead and head over to my right side, what's this section called?
Those are your custom fields, so that would be
There you
um,
go.
that's it.
Mm-hmm. And then how do we add more custom fields?
Well, as you fill them out, it only lets you. Well, you can define the fields.
Yes. You click on define the fields. Now this is the what. How many fields can you have up to?
Uh, 15, but you can only use 7.
Correct. You can have up to 15. However, per person, you can only use 7 out of the 15. But again, 7 out of the 15 can overlap each other. So
Right.
one field can go for both, for all of them or for just one of them, customer, employee, or vendor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But of course, a business establishment date would not go for um, your customer or your employee. It would go primarily towards a vendor. So good, so good. So I'm gonna go ahead and click cancel. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make a note here. So how to do it is when you add a new customer slash vendor slash employee, right? You're going to go to additional information or additional info, and then you're going to define fields. And then the what is going to be 15 custom fields in total. 7 custom fields per person. Okay? What about items? How many custom fields can I have for items?
Is that the one that's like 14,500?
Okay, that's the total that the whole entire QuickBooks can hold. But that's not items, it's names. Okay? So in this case, we're talking about custom fields. So if you remember, we go to our chart of accounts. Our chart of accounts is the perfect example of how we can look at custom items. All right? So we talked about we talked about the 5 different account types, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So why is it that I can create a bank account, an accounts receivable account, an other asset, other fixed assets, and then other assets? Those are going to be considered custom item fields. So how many can you have?
As many as you need.
No.
I thought there was, okay, there's an actual amount of them.
For
Go ahead.
If you're creating an account, you have unlimited amount of access to that. But I'm talking about breaking down the account types, right? I'm creating custom fields for my particular account types. Right? Do I have to have a bank account?
Yes.
Do okay. In context, like for my assets, do I have to separate it as my bank?
You don't have to. You can change that one.
Exactly. Right? So in this case, it's in your book somewhere. It should tell you that for for items, right? You can have tiers, right? So you have the main account, and then it breaks down into your sub accounts, right? You can have up to 5 customizable fields for items. Okay.
Okay.
5 custom fields for items. Right? So again, the rule is 15, 7, and 5. 15 is in grand total. 7 is for, you pick 7 out of those 15 for each person. But of course, your list for your items is going to be 5 per item. Okay, so use the chart of accounts as an example, right? Okay, last but not least, we have this question here: how to customize an invoice. All right. This is chapter 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was.
Right. What opportunity do you get when you get to customize your own invoice?
Well, you get to make it look the way you want it to look.
Exactly.
Puts in the information.
Exactly. What else?
Um, you can add like your terms, that kind of thing.
Okay. I'm talking about more along the lines of visual appeal.
Oh, you can put in your logo.
Yes, good. Customize. Customize.
Phone numbers, that kind of thing.
Perfect. Customize or personalize your invoice to reflect your company, right? Example, you can use a company logo. Okay? You can use company colors, right? That's important, right? Every company has some kind of unique color scheme, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, company colors. All right? Now, do you remember how to do that? Okay.
Actually, I don't.
Okay.
Since I just made myself a note, says you need to really look at that.
Okay, so it's chapter 7. It's the
Yeah.
very end of chapter 7. So I'm not quite sure what pages that is, but it is in chapter 7 where we got to look at customizing a lot of things. So here's the first thing is, where do we even find all of our forms and all of our, you know, cancel, our sales receipts and whatnot, right? How do we where do we find all that? You can,
Find your sale. Go ahead.
we, no, what were you going to say?
I was getting ready to say, well, you find your receipts and that kind of thing up in the when you go onto the home page.
Okay, so these are already, okay, these ones are transactions. All right. When you go into your home page and you click on it, it automatically pulls up a form, right? That's your transaction that you're adding in here. But when I print out that receipt or that sales form, whatever it is, right? It's going to be the basic the basic standardized invoice, a typical black and white, no company logo, no nothing, right? So how do you customize that? Well, here, if you go to lists, right,
Right.
and you hit on templates, okay,
There we go.
there you go. Now you have a list of every single invoice, sales forms, order, purchase orders, sales order statements, right? These are the things that you want to send either to your customer, to your vendor, right? And these are the ones that you can customize by simply either modifying it right then and there, the exact one, and make changes to it. And here it gives you a display of what it will look like when you print it out. So again, if you follow the guidelines here, right? If I want to edit the information or edit the title or something like that, I'd click on it and I would click on change fonts. Okay. So that's how you customize it, and you can add your company logo if you want to by up here. Add a logo, right? So that's how you can customize your sales form. So then the next time, right, if I wanted to, this is something that it's kind of, we don't talk about it, so it's kind of hard, since we don't talk about it, it's not going to be something that you notice. So when I click on my invoice, right, okay, at the very top it says template. What kind of template do you want to use? And if you made a customizable one, I can click on that drop down menu and I can select the one that came from the templates list, right? And when I print these out, it's going to show the exact template that I created in that list. So here, this is where you can customize your sales form by clicking on the templates drop down menu and select one. But you have to create it first. You can't expect, you can't expect the QuickBooks to know what you want. They have the Intuit standardized invoices, right? Like I said, the generic black and white type of ordeal, right? It's very basic, very generic, and it's probably the one that most companies commonly use because when you personalize your invoices, it makes it that much more memorable, right? Especially when you send it to either a customer or a vendor, right? They're gonna know, oh, by looking at the logo, okay, I know it's from this company, right? Where if you get a regular invoice and there's nothing on it, you're not gonna remember where this came from, right? Unless you have to read it. So that's how you create custom invoices, sales receipts, purchase orders, etc., etc. And then a little FYI here. So if you can customize all those types of reports, right? If you can customize an invoice. So let me go ahead and type out the how. So list menu bar.
Then templates.
So again, that's definitely something you may have to read again. So this, I'm going to make a little thing here that says Chapter 7. All right. So again, it also gives you the list of what you can do. So you can customize invoices, sales, receipts, purchase orders. Okay. But they also give you a list of what you cannot create. Obviously, you cannot customize your bill, right? Because a bill comes from a different company. So you can't, so cannot customize a bill. And lastly, you can't customize your check. Checks are the most sensible data that you cannot make any changes to, because if you were to create one from scratch, let's just say, right, you can easily forget the smallest details, right? Because a check must include the company name. It needs to include the routing number or the account number. It needs to include the date, the amount, the signature. It needs to include all those details. All right. So that's definitely something that you cannot modify. Okay.
Okay.
So you can't modify a bill because it comes from another company, and you can't modify a check. Right? All right. And that is it for this. So a lot of things that you may have to go over and review a lot. But other than that, we have completed the entire certification test prep questions. All right. So how do you feel?